right, welcome to Big Time Fantasy. I'm Zach. This is Nick. We'll be your host today and every other day. So, you want to tell them what we're getting into today, Nick?
Yeah, so today we're going over our early 2024 quarterback rankings for Dynasty football. This is not going to be including the rookies. There's just way too much movement still to happen with the draft and everything. So, yeah, non-rookie quarterback rankings.
Absolutely. So we'll get straight into it. For our tier one, do you want to bring up the tier list?
Yeah, of course.
So while you're pulling that up, so our tier one. I mean, we had the same. We agreed on. It's pretty straightforward. I think it's every top tier. It's going to be these guys. It's there we go. So we got Josh Allen, we got Mahomes, and then we got Hurts. All these guys are 28 years max or younger, so they're all a dual threat. They can use their legs, use their arm, both part of all three good part of good offenses. You're not really going to hear a lot of argument about these being the top guys. So we're just going to kind of breeze past those, and then we'll kind of get more specific as we get into the next, grouping of guys. So,
Yeah, I agree. All these guys have been elite for the past few years now. Definitely rushing upside with all three. Obviously, more with Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, but Mahomes the GOAT. Can't drop him down too far because of this year, so
absolutely.
pretty consensus there. Yeah. Do you want me to get started with number 4?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So dropping down to our second tier, we put Justin Herbert as next. He's 25 years old, elite pocket passer, can do a little bit with his legs as well. He just got Jim Harbaugh this year. He's going to be the new head coach there. Great coach. I am worried a little bit about how much he uses the run game at Michigan and at the 49ers. He was definitely known for establishing the run, but he didn't have as much of an elite pocket passer as Justin Herbert is. He can make all the throws on the field. He threw for over 4,100 yards, 2020 to 2022. So his first 3 years in the league. Also has some of the most attempts out of any quarterback that's been in the league since. So definitely our top option here. Anything you want to add, Zach?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you nailed it. I think you had all the good points of, kind of what makes him at the top of the tier here for us, at least. So I'll just move right on the next one. Next here on the second spot, we got Lamar. I mean, he's a top 3 dual threat option in the league, and he's not number 3, so he's talented both ways. I believe he turns only 27 this upcoming week, I believe. So you still got a few years with him there. This last season, he had his most passing yards for a season. He did have the most game played too, but I think that kind of goes into him being a smarter runner now. He's being able to be a little more healthy. So I think that kind of, is kind of positive in his regard. And he had 7 interceptions this last year, which was his second least. And like I said, it was his most games played. So his rate obviously is going down, which I think he's maturing as both a passer and a runner at the same time, which I think kind of just keeps him. And you're going to have him for at least, 4 more years, you'd think. So yeah, I think he's a good option here.
Absolutely, especially if he stays healthy. He'll get another chance to put up a top 5 QB season. So
for sure,
I like him there as well. Let's go into our next guy, the young stud, CJ Stroud. Put up probably one of the best rookie fantasy seasons by a quarterback that I've ever seen personally. But yeah, he did it with his arm. He's great at pocket movement. Even if the line breaks down, the play breaks down, he can roll out, get it to his 2 young receivers that he has. Nico's a little bit older, but still on the young side for a receiver. I think he's only like 25 or 26. Stroud himself, he's only 22. As we know, he's just a rookie this year. So he's definitely got a bright future ahead of him. He had a great touchdown to interception ratio. top 5 in the league. Um, he's shown that he can have that ceiling game as well. He had a 40-point game in week 9 this year, which I'd be super happy with if out of my quarterback spot. And he did miss 2 games with injury this year. I don't see it as really a trend. I think it was just, crazy play. It happens, you're
Yeah.
not going to be able to make every game every year. So I think that's a little bit of an outlier.
Yeah, for sure. Great young talent. Wonder League test doesn't mean anything, obviously, so prove that wrong. So, yeah, great pick there, I think. Getting to the next guy here, we got Joey B, Joe Shiesty. He's still only 27 years old, which is kind of good for getting some further years. He kind of moved down to the bottom of this tier here because of health. I think is his biggest thing for us. But he's a great player. He's comfy out of the pocket. He's not a run first or second type of guy, but he can move when he needs to if the pocket collapses or if that's the best option to get out there. And a big thing for him and that Bengals team is he's going to be paired with Jamar Chase for the foreseeable future. So them just having that chemistry, having a top QB and receiver connection, being able to build together, I think that really pushes his value up there too. So
Yeah, I totally agree. And hopefully they can shore up that line. We don't know what's going on with T. Higgins just yet. Um, I think that also goes into push him down just a little bit. Don't know if he has more than one receiver there, but I think he'll still be in that elite category.
for sure.
Um, okay, so dropping down to tier number 3, we let it off with Anthony Richardson. I think I'm a little higher on him than you are. We both have him up here, but through the 4 games that he was a part of, he had 4 rushing touchdowns already, which is crazy production from a QB as far as rushing goes. He has a huge arm. He can sling the ball. I see him throw darts over the middle of the field. There was one in particular to Josh Downs this year. Just made me even more impressed with him. Uh, Obviously, biggest concern here is health. He played in 4 games this year. 2 of those he left with injury. Um, Definitely not a good look to start your rookie season. Um, but I think just like you said with Lamar, if he can learn to be a smarter runner and be able to not take as many big hits, I think he'll be able to be a elite talent in the league for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said you were a little higher on him than me, and my only thing was the health. Just because he showed us tremendous upside, so I think he has the potential to be in those top 2 tiers. Snuggled in with those guys. But just what we've seen from him so far is that he hasn't been able to stay healthy, which is unfortunate, and you hope it is not the case going forward. But it's what we've seen so far, so kind of what we have to go
Definitely.
off of. But getting to the next guy here, we got Trevor Lawrence, a guy that I was higher on than you. But yeah, so I mean, he's 24 years old still, young guy, still has room to develop. He's shown a lot of flashes already. And I'll mention this in a later guy too, but being the number 1 overall pick, even if you don't show anything for your first 3 or 4 years, you're going to get more chances unless you're like generationally bad, which Trevor Lawrence obviously has, like I said, shown some flashes. He had a couple good seasons. Last year was off season for him. I personally think they bounce back next season. I think it was just a down season all around with some things that happened. I think it was the first time he really has had to play banged up in his career. So it kind of took away from some of the things he can do and wants to do. So I think it'll be an outlier season more than the status quo,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely agree with you on that. There's so many drops by those receivers. Calvin Ridley showing his rust for sure.
Yeah,
Um, so many drops, and a lot of them were for touchdown. Would have been for touchdowns.
yeah,
I know his last game. I was watching it. His last game this year, I was watching it, and he definitely missed a couple throws. But I think a lot of that can be. You can point towards the injury too. He was playing banged up, so we'll see moving forward if he can stay healthy and if he can actually enjoy that upside that everyone gives him. So,
yeah, for sure.
all right, next in this same tier, we put Kyler Murray. Just 26 years old. Definitely has elite rushing upside. He's quick. He might be a little bit smaller. Could be a little bit of an injury concern there, especially since second half of last year and the first half of this year he missed with injury. Um, so hopefully this is a guy that is able to stay healthy and be able to learn how to rush better, and he can still make all the throws on the field. He hasn't had really a number one receiver in a couple years when DeAndre Hopkins left. Um, and I know in 2020 he was QB2 on the year. Um, so he's shown that he can be that top option at quarterback, and I'm hoping that after this offseason he gets healthy. Hopefully they get him a number one receiver like Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm seeing a lot going to the Cardinals. Um, so hopefully there's something to that and they get him as number one option.
Yeah, I think you got this. I think you nailed it. I'm pretty high on Kyler. I think he instantly came back from injury. The biggest thing you're worrying about when someone comes back from injury like that is their rushing ability. If they're a rushing quarterback, obviously, is their rushing ability. He came, from game one showed that he still had it all there. He didn't miss a step. So I think if he ends up on the same team or not, or what pieces he got around him, I think he's a good option.
Yep, definitely. So I will start this next tier out as well. Tier
Yeah.
4. We're putting Jordan Love in there. Um, he had a great year this year. First year as a starter, was under Aaron Rodgers for a couple years, learned a lot as we've seen. He ended up being the QB5 this past year. Um, very elite, has great weapons, and they're all young as well. Jordan Love's only 25, and he's got great young options. Christian Watson, great playmaker. Jaden Reed, as we've seen this year already, great playmaker. We can give him it on end arounds. Just get that man the ball. Um, Along with Dotavian Wicks, they still have Romeo Dobbs, a couple good tight ends. So the weapons around him um, help elevate his already good talent. And I think this is a guy we can see throughout this season. If he keeps this up, I'll definitely be moving him up in my personal rankings, getting him a little higher if he
Yeah,
can
for sure.
maintain that elite status. So,
Yeah, he's one of those guys that definitely has the potential to climb up the rankings. Had a good rookie year.
hmm.
Good piece around him, like you said, can move around. So, yeah, yeah, good guy to have there. Let's get to my next one then. We got Justin Fields here. Yeah, so with Fields, with most of his quarterbacks, and you're going to hear me talking about age. I think that's a big thing in Dynasty, obviously. He's still only 24 years old. And from what I'm hearing, the reports I'm hearing is that the Bears are gonna take Caleb Williams with number one. We'll see how true that is, but I heard they're kind of locked in on him, which means Fields is gonna end up on a new team if that's the case. And I think wherever he goes, whoever trades for him, he's gonna be a starter there. They're not gonna trade him to have him be a backup. And B, I think he's going to have, no matter what system is around him, he's going to have a high floor. So I think he's more of a floor play than a ceiling play, even though he does have a, good ceiling. He's more of a floor play just because that rushing will give him, points. And if he can work on that arm, get into a little accuracy a little bit, then, that'll boost him up higher. But he always has those legs to fall back on.
Definitely, definitely. And I know he hasn't showed it too much at Ohio State. He has great deep pass ability. He has a big arm. Um, he hasn't shown it too much. I know there's been actually quite a few drops this year when he drops it in the bucket deep, but can't blame it all on that. After 3 seasons, hasn't shown too much. I know at the end of last year, his rushing ability really came onto the scene, and he balled out towards the end of the year. But besides that, he needs to develop as a passer if we really want to keep him on this list or even move him up. So
Yeah, for sure.
you want to go into
Oh, yeah.
our
This
next
is me
guy?
here. So here we got Tua. I think another guy that I was higher on, a little bit higher on than you. And I don't think we mentioned it directly yet, but these are our consensus rankings. We did our own and kind of just agreed on what we do it for our consensus. Tua's a guy I was higher on than. He's still a younger quarterback. He's not, pushing 30 like that yet. But my thing is that he's on a great offense. They have a heavy pass attack. They have a lot of trick things where even when they get their running backs involved, they can pass to them. And, you got a great duo of receivers that can get onto there. He's lower because he doesn't give you rushing upside whatsoever. Just not something that he has. But I feel like that he hasn't done anything for the Dolphins to move on from him yet. Maybe next season, next 2 seasons will be kind of a hot seat type thing for him. But I think for the foreseeable future, he will be on there. And like I said, it's all about the offense that's around him.
Yep, yep, I agree. And I think much like this next guy, he's more of the game manager type role. I don't think he necessarily elevates the offense, but he definitely doesn't hold him back or hasn't held him back too much this past season. So, yep, I like two there as well. And as I was saying, our next guy, the ultimate game manager, who made a Super Bowl, Mr. Brock Purdy. Um, he was QB6 on the year. Um, has elite weapons around him. Probably the best supporting cast you can even ask for. Definitely the best in the league right now. Got Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, um, and obviously Christian McCaffrey. It's looking like that group is probably going to end up staying together, at least for next year,
Yep,
with how the contracts are playing out. Um, so you at least next year with those elite weapons, I'm sure they'll try and keep most of that core together for years coming. So um, he's very good, very consistent too. Typically, he throws 2 touchdowns, no more, no less. So you kind of know what to expect out of him. I believe he is in the top end of our QB2 range. So if you have one of these elite guys and you have Brock Purdy giving you consistent points on a weekly basis in your super flex, I mean, that's fine with me. That solves my quarterback state.
for sure. And as much as I'm not, a Niners fan, it's a good story for Purdy, being Mr. Relevant, having another quarterback on the team that was drafted higher, but then, winning the QB battle and being a starter. So it's a good story, and I think
Definitely.
everything, you kind of hit the nail on the head there for that. So not too much more to
Yep.
say about him, but we will go into the last guy of our official on our tier rankings here. We got Bryce Young. So kind of earlier, what I was saying with Trevor Lawrence being a number one pick, no matter how bad you are or how bad your seasons are, you're getting a chance for at least 3 seasons. So if the Panthers, which they haven't shown the ability to do in the last 5 years, put some pieces around him, then maybe he'll have a better chance. I think he's one of the harder guys to judge for me, just because he showed the talent to be a number one overall, but the Panthers have done him literally zero favors. So I think it's kind of too quick to give him a full evaluation. He hasn't shown anything, which is why he's down here, but he absolutely can, which is why we still need to include him. So
Definitely. Definitely. And as you said, as that number one overall pick, he still holds value even after a terrible year this year. And I think he'll maintain his value, if not increase his value throughout this year. They get one or two pieces and he looks a little bit better. His value is going to go up. He might actually be one of my buy lows for this year if I'm looking for a cheaper option. So,
yeah, for sure, for sure. So then we left some room for honorable mentions. Do you want to throw
mhm.
out a couple of yours? I'll throw a couple of mine. We'll call it.
Yeah, definitely. I think I got to put Jared Goff in there. Um, Similar to Purdy, he has a lot of great weapons. Sam Laporta burst on the scene early. Uh, Two great running backs that can both catch passes. More Gibbs, and are very explosive. Amon Ra, um, he's been balling the past couple years. And I think Jared Goff, as long as he keeps his job, he will definitely be fantasy relevant, especially in Superflex. So I think he's got a couple years left as well. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. One guy I'll throw out there is Dakota Rain Prescott. Boy, with him, I mean, since he's came into the league, he's been in a top offense. As long as he's healthy for the season, he's a QB1. I think it's pretty straightforward. This last year, he looked, since his injury, he's looked the best running he has. So he's not going to be giving you, Lamar or, that or Fields type rushing yards, but he is going to get you something now, which is good. So,
definitely, definitely look good towards the end of the year there. I'll go one more. Will Levis. He was definitely one of the top couple quarterbacks in this past draft. He got the chance to start this year. First game looked great. After that, not as much. But they got a new coaching staff over there this coming year. So we should see. We'll see like how they do with him. Derrick Henry looks like he's going to be gone, so they'll probably do a little bit more passing unless they can get another bell cow. I don't think Tajay Spears will be the Derrick Henry type bell cow that he has been for the past few years. So
yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
he's got good upside.
Yeah. So he has the opposite of kind of what I talked about with Trevor Lawrence and Bryce Young, where they have that top draft pick. They're going to stick with them. These guys who aren't a top draft pick aren't in the first round at quarterback. They have a much shorter leash. So even if they show flashes, it's sometimes it's not enough, and they're going to go out and find somebody. So, which is why we don't have them officially ranked. But yeah, that's all I would say about that.
Yep. Okay.
There's a couple guys. I'll just do one more here. There's a couple guys that I kind of wanted to talk about. Like it could have been Baker, could have been Matthew Stafford. But buy low candidate that I have is going to be Aaron Rodgers. Just because you don't know if he's going to be able to bounce back. I mean, that's a big injury, and he's older. But if you can, I wouldn't give up a top 3 round pick for him, but if you can snag him for a 4th or 5th round pick as some insurance in a super flex league, he does have high QB2, at least upside. I mean, that's for sure his upside,
Definitely.
but yeah, I mean, I think the price tag is really low on him, and it's some that you can easily go out and snag. So I'm not ranking him above some of these guys that are left, but just someone to keep an eye on is really why I'm throwing him
Definitely.
out there.
Definitely. And he's definitely that contender, need a extra guy for this year um, kind of guy that you want to look for. So good call on that one.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that's all we have. This is our first video, so if you stayed around this long, thank you. We appreciate it. Give us a subscribe. Eventually, once we get more followers in, we'll start rating people's dynasty teams. That'll be down the road, though. So just for now, stay tuned for rankings and everything else. Anything else you want to throw them out with?
No, hit that like button, comment, let us know where we went wrong with this rankings. Um, yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in. Like I said,